So, looking at it in the context of the entire Chalisa, so far Tulsidas ji describes the physical properties and the lineage of Hanumanji. Okay. So, looking at these two chaupai in the context of the entire Chalisa, so far Tulsidas ji describes the lineage of Hanumanji as well as his physical properties. How is he to look at? Now, going forward, these two shlokas describe his intellectual capacities and his attitude. What these two chaupais literally mean is, Vidyavan, you are well versed in all knowledge. Guni, you are full of virtues. Ati chatur, you are extremely smart. Ram kaj karibeko atur, and you are ever ready to carry out all the jobs of whatever Lord Rama needs of you. And the other way to look at it also is, anything you do is, you do it as eagerly as you're doing the Lord's work. The next two shlokas is Prabhu Charitra Sunibeko Rasya Ram Lakhan Sita Manasya. You always take delight in listening to the glories of Prabhu Sri Ram, and you always carry Ram, Lakshman and Sita in your heart. So this is the literal meaning of the two shlokas. Now, why is this important? So when you look at service, to me, entire life of Hanumanji is about service. When you look at service, there are two questions you need to ask. What do I do and what is my attitude to it? Now, what do I do is, let's not look at that question right now. It depends on space, time. It's like, what is the attitude? So, Hanumanji was Vidyaman Guni Ati Chatur. Like, he was supposedly, or he was the master of all existing knowledge at that point of time. And he used all that knowledge in the service of the Lord. And all the faculties were devoted to service. Now, just to give an example, what happens when all faculties are not devoted to service? I was at Starbucks, and people don't get my name at Starbucks. So I decided to call myself Mark with a C. Okay, it worked fine for a couple of days, till I went to a Starbucks where I said, triple shot caramel macchiato for Mark with a C. And I got the coffee cup back. It was Kark, okay, C-A-R-C. Now, that's an example where the person who was doing it, typically if he had used all his faculties, he would have got it, right? It's just one example where, and 90% of the time when I do something my wife does not want me to do, like cut vegetables, I'll ask 100 questions that I can probably figure out if I used a little bit of effort. Now, that is as an example of where one is not using all the faculty, in his disposal to actually do some work. Now, going away from, what I do, even in scripture, even if you look at Ramayana, I was looking at, okay, Vidyavan, Hanumanji is not unique in that, in Mahabharata. When I was looking at it, I looked at Ravana. And supposedly, his accomplishments, looking from a very capitalistic viewpoint, are pretty awesome. Right? He was again a master of all the Vedas. He was, a super awesome Veena player. He had the devotion box also ticked. He was a great devotee of Shiva. And come to think of it, I was reading about when he, took over Lanka. I was looking at it, it was like the awesomest corporate takeover ever. He did not have to spend a single pi, or drop a single, drop of blood. Just happened. That is, looking at it from that perspective, it does look pretty amazing. But we do not end up singing Ravan Chalisa. Like, that's just not happening. Like, The reason why it is not is that the substratum of guna, that virtue, is lacking. And by what I mean, if you contrast how Hanumanji went about things, and let's just look at bhakti versus how Ravan went about things, right? So supposedly Ravana was a great devotee of Shiva, right? And before he got all powerful, he did great tapas for it, and every time to please the Lord, he began chopping off his head, and he did 10 times, and that's when Lord gave him darshan. Now, to me, it does not look, if you remove the whole part of head is an important part of the body away, it does not look very different than a kid throwing his toys so that he gets a new toy. It was just his head in that purpose. So it is a very, very self-centric way of approaching the whole devotion aspect. Now, taking it further, right? One more example is, he decided that he was such a big devotee of the Lord that Lord needed to, instead of stay in Kailash, he needed to stay in Lanka. So he went to Kailash to literally lift Kailash and get him home. He happened to lift Kailash, and Lord didn't like it, and he literally put his foot down. When he put his foot down, Ravana was crushed underneath Kailash. And he yelled, it seems. And that's how he got his name Ravana, saying that Shivji was amused by his yelling and called him one who yells. That's essentially the meaning of Ravana. So, contrasting it with Hanumanji, where even without attempting to, achieve any of these, he always had Lord beside him, and he got, immortality that supposedly all of these guys were after, as a blessing. He didn't even go after it, but he still got it. To me, these, Ramayana presents a very, very interesting contrast in what should be done like Hanumanji and what should not be done as well. Now, there is also, when I was thinking about this, a third very nuanced aspect of, I was thinking of Mahabharata as well. Where did Karna fall? He was also serving, right? He was serving Duryodhana. What went wrong? Why don't we have Karna Chalisa as well? And it turns out that whom you serve is also as important, and with the attitude. Karna ended up serving Duryodhana. And in my opinion, what happened was that when Karna did all his service to Duryodhana, his undercurrent was proving he was better than all the Pandavas. So it was a very self-aggrandizing way, even though it was service to someone else with all his faculties. So it is very important, looking at these three very interesting examples of when we are approaching service, we should pick Hanumanji as the idol. Now, the question you will ask is, Hanumanji probably had it easy. He had bhakti to give in with, to start with. And the question that you need to ask is bhakti, are you born with bhakti, or can it be cultivated? Now, this is pretty interesting. So let's, step back and say, what is bhakti? Let's just get the definition right for right now. Bhakti is when like is directed outside, it is desire. When like is directed inwards, we call it bhakti. Okay, that's so far. And that's the definition part of it. Do all of you here have cell phones, like smartphones? And how many of you were there when smartphones were not around? Simple phones. But yeah, you probably have seen. No phones. Yeah, no phones. Now, think about it. How did we get so attached to this awesome device here? Apple did not, I had a music player and a phone. I did not have it in one. So Apple put out an advertising. I said, I'm not going to spend my money in it. Simply will not spend my money. I have my music player and I have my cell phone, and it is cheaper. Then Apple, I kept seeing the music, the whole Apple advertisement with the shadow and the white things. One of my friends bought it. Oh, this is pretty cool. You can do this and this and this with it. Nice. Okay. Still, I can live without an iPhone. More of my friends bought it. I said, no, I think, maybe let's see what this iPhone thing is all about. Go to a shop, look at the iPhone. Oh, this is pretty cool. Let me just get one iPhone, and then, it's probably just one of them. Then I'm not going to use it again. And then we are hooked. As simple as that. I won't think of going back to a dumb phone now. I need a smartphone. I need to check my email. I need my music on my phone. That's simple as that. Now, it's a simple example for, I did not even have a desire for a phone. And by surrounding myself with media, by this whole corporate thing, I was able to get attached to it, a simple way. Now, the question is, can it be done with bhakti? Can this whole thing be internally directed? And the next chopai, Prabhu Charitra Suni Beko Rasiya, Ram Lakhana Sita Mana Rasiya, gives an algorithm for that, as simple as that. Always revel in the Lord's name. This is internal marketing example. Like, if you are surrounded with people who are always saying the Lord's name, always praising the Lord, automatically you will develop that devotion that will allow your actions to be devoted to the Lord. And the next statement was, to me, again, it was interesting. Ram Lakhan Sita Manas Basiya. Ramji is fairly straightforward. He is the Lord. We need to, Ram Mana Basiya, I would have understood. Why Ram Lakhan Sita? Like, why three of them? One is, three is more than one. Why put the extra effort? To think about it, Lakshmanji and Sitaji are, it is as important. Lakshmanji was probably, equally or not if a greater devotee of Ramji. And it is important, for this statement tells me that it is equally important to be in contact with the devotees of the Lord as well. So when you look at all our scriptures, they say that satsang is where all it starts. And Hanuman Chalisa is, an example where it actually gives us the algorithm to develop that bhakti process. It is not something that you are born with, it can be cultivated. And once it has been cultivated, you can dedicate all your actions to that altar. So one more shloka that talks about it is by Ramana Maharshi, that says that Ishwararpitam leads to Nechaya Kritam, leads to Chitta Sodakam, leads to Mukti Sadakam. And when you look at it, both these shlokas to me are very similar. And exactly how that Ishwararpitam is to be developed is told to me by this particular chopai, saying that always repeat and revel in the Lord's name. So thank you. Hari Om. Any questions? Perfect.
Hari Om, everyone. So I will be covering Chopai 9 and 10. And so let's begin by just repeating those out loud. So, Shukshma Rupa, Darsiya Dirvikava, Bikata Rupa, Dari Lanka Jarava. Then Bhima Rupa, Dari Asura Samare, Ramachandra Ke Bhaja Samare. I was having a hard time reading my own writing. So what do these two Chaupais directly translate to, or loosely translate to? Essentially, it's telling more about Hanumanji's story, some of his abilities in terms of physical abilities or attributes that were given to him or described by Sage Valmiki. So essentially, it translates to that Lord Hanuman who was able to assume the smallest form when revealing himself to Mother Sita, but then was able to assume a fierce form when burning down the city of Lanka. And then the 10th one also continues to expound on that by saying he was able to assume a deadly form and destroy all the demons and accomplish the mission of Lord Rama. So that seems relatively straightforward when you look at it. He's talking about what Hanumanji physically did and what he was physically capable of doing. But there's actually a lot more, in-depth meaning to what he did. When people talk about Hanumanji becoming small, in general, people who are very big and very powerful, very strong, don't typically wish to become small because their ego doesn't allow them to do so. Because for them, it's an attachment to this idea that, oh, I'm big, it doesn't, I shouldn't, sully my dignity by going and doing things beneath me. But even someone who is so big and so powerful had the ability to become so small just for the service of the Lord. And with no attachment to the benefit he received. In fact, constantly he put himself in danger, 24/7, just to carry out the Lord's wishes. He had no guarantee of coming back alive. And for him, that work was much more important than the actual fruit of that work. And I think that is something that we, in our everyday lives, have to take from Hanumanji especially, is that we tend to work with the goal in mind, right? In the sense through our work, we can see a goal, we can see a tangible result. But for Hanumanji, it wasn't necessarily about the result, because the result is never in his hands, right? So he puts it all at the feet of the Lord, and so the result is in the Lord's hands, but the work is in his hands. So how well he does that work, how well he completes his tasks, or what leads him to, or what propels him to continue his job, right? So not only did he travel through Lanka, he traveled through Lanka excellently. He did so without, doing anything that was immoral or ignoble. He traveled. He was able to not only go to Lanka, show himself to Sita ji, but even in the court of Ravana, was able to show so much respect because he was in the opposition's court, right? The beautiful thing is that I had actually listened to just today from Swami Sarveshananda ji's talks on actually this subject, was how he likened Hanumanji's ability to become small and large similar to that of like a child. So like a child is similar to a mosquito. They have this parallel in when they're quiet and you don't hear them is when they're causing mischief. But when you hear them and you see them is when they're actually doing good. So I tried to see what kind of parallel I could see to Hanumanji, who became as small as a mosquito. And I took it in context of Ravana. So when Hanumanji was in front of Ravana, or not in front of Ravana, excuse me, when he became small like a mosquito and went to reveal himself to Mother Sita, he became a real pain for Ravana, right? Because he was letting Sita ji know that, Rama's coming, everything's going to be okay. And, she lost all her fear, lost all her worries. And then when he actually went and sat in front of Ravana in his court and became big and very, vocal, he destroyed all of Lanka, just like a child, he was able to, you see that parallel between a mosquito and a child, and also what Hanumanji did in Lanka. So when you look back on the story, especially that scene in the court when he's talking with Ravana, you can hearken it back to how Lord Shiva is considered to be, or Hanumanji is considered to be the avatar of Lord Shiva. All right. So the story goes that Parvati Devi was adamant about joining Lord Shiva in this incarnation. She said, "Please don't leave me. I don't want you to go by yourself." And he said, "Well, it's not possible. I have to be a brahmacharya in this form. I have to stay celibate, essentially." And she said, "Very well, that's fine, but I'm still coming with you." And he said, "Okay, how can I get around this caveat?" So they say that Hanumanji's tail was actually Parvati Devi attached to Hanuman, which in and of himself is Lord Shiva. So in Ravana's court, Ravana, the first thing that came to his mind when trying to think of a way to harm Hanuman was burning his tail, right? And Parvati Devi represents this supreme pure energy, right? That's what she stands for. And for the basis of, in fact, a lot of the story is that, most of our Hindu stories is that that supreme Brahman is being separated from that supreme energy by demons, such as Ravana. Right? So the first thing Ravana thinks of is to burn that tail off and to harm, Parvati Devi, or not even harm Parvati Devi, just to separate that. It symbolizes the separation of Brahman from that supreme energy. But then as soon as Shiva, or Hanuman as Shiva, saw that, he became enraged, became big, huge, and burned all of Lanka down. So what does that represent? That represents imitation gold, is what I'd like to hearken it to. Is that when you look at Ravana's accolades, all the things that he was able to generate, all the things that he was able to bring to himself, right? It seems as though they are tangible and they're going to last forever and things that last forever, right? But just like the test for gold in and of itself has 4 tests. A scratching test, where you scratch it against a stone to test the quality of gold, a heating test, a cutting test, and also a beating test. Like that, man himself has 4 tests: his education, his character, his virtue, and his deeds. Those are the 4 standards by which men are judged. So when the Lord's gold, Hanuman, was set on fire, he did not burn. But when Ravana's gold was set on fire, it burned. Right? So what does that show you? That it's imitation gold, it's fool's gold, it's temporary gold that cannot last because it's ignoble gold. And this also harkens back to what Nitesh Bhai was saying, was that actually the virtue in which one carries out their duties, or how they go about getting that goal of theirs, is very important. It's kind of, if you were working for a company and that company was a company that dived into a lot of unethical practices, but you were doing your job right, does that not give the same product to you what the entire company is doing, right? You get the same fruit of what the company is intending on doing, right? So that was one test. So then you can also look at another test in terms of gold, that is seen in the Ramayana. When Sita ji asked for the golden deer that she had seen when Ram was on exile with her, Lord Rama was on exile with her, Lord Rama did everything in his power to go get that deer, because he said, well, this is the only thing Sita ji has ever asked for. So when he went, he killed actually Ravana's uncle, right, by cutting him, right, using the arrow and cutting him. And so that gold that was Ravana's uncle, that golden deer, died, right? But interestingly enough, actually Sanskrit, Shankara Rung, I believe, Shanka Rung directly translates into deer which stands on a branch, which also equates to a monkey. So what Lord Rama did was send his I'm sorry, I can't really, Shankarung, I'm not pronouncing it right, or Hanuman, to Lord Sita, because he knew that's what she wanted, a golden deer, to her, and it survived the test, it survived the tribulations of traveling over that, ocean, and it was able to get to where it was going, right? So again, Lord Rama's test succeeded, his gold succeeded versus Ravana's gold, right? So when you're looking at all these things, and you're trying to figure out a way that you can apply them to your own life, right? You have to ask yourself where you put your, do you put your best foot forward in everything that you go for? So if you're not putting your best foot forward, or you're keeping your mind in a lower plane, you don't start a task because of fear of the obstacle, right? But when you are kind of in the middle, like most of us are there right now, kind of in the middle, where you start an obstacle and then you stop, you start a task and you stop as soon as you see an obstacle coming in front of you. What it shows is that we have to strive to be something greater, be something like Hanumanji. Hanumanji was able to carry out his work and had tons of abilities and realized his abilities because he cared only about the work rather than the goal, right? So if we can throw away our fear of the result, and then also realize how much ability that we truly have, and not go into work looking for the fruits of the labor, but go into it for the work and act through obstacles like Hanumanji did, then we can succeed in whatever we set forward to accomplish. So that's what I had for these two CHYK. So yeah, thank you all very much.
Hari Om. My name is Padma, and I will be covering CHYKs 11 and 12. So we'll go ahead and start with just chanting both of these. Laya Sanjeevana Lakhana Jiyaye, Shri Raghuvira Harashi Uralaye, Raghupati Kinhi Bahuta Badai, Tuma Mama Priya Bharata Samabhai. So CHYK number 11, the direct translation is that Lord Hanumanji, you fetched the Sanjeevani to revive Lord Lakshman, and Lord Ram himself embraced you in gratitude. So looking at this CHYK, I was just kind of breaking apart the words, and I noticed that for, obviously, Hanumanji fetched the Sanjeevani for Lord Lakshman, right? But the CHYK actually says Lakhana, it doesn't say Lakshman. So I was like, okay, why is there this disparity? And I kind of researched it a little bit and found out this entire Hanuman Chalisa is in a language called Avadi. How many of you have heard of this language? Okay, awesome. And I think Devaki actually mentioned this on our first day as well, but I just wanted to elaborate a little bit. So Avadi is an ancient language. It was spoken in Ayodhya, and obviously Lord Tulsidas wrote the entire Chalisa in that language, so it's pretty ancient. But along with being ancient, it's also spoken today. It's an Eastern Hindi dialect, so it's spoken in places like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, parts of Nepal, MP, and also Delhi. So I just thought that was really interesting. I guess being a South Indian, the Hanuman Chalisa is like kind of new to me already. I only learned it a few years ago, but this language also is very new to me. So that's just a little bit about Avadi. Oh, and one cool random fun fact about it as well. It's spoken in the Caribbean today because there are so many Uttar Pradesh, I guess, descendants that were, I guess they were, I don't know if shipped is the right word. They were taken by the British East Indian Company to the Caribbean as plantation workers. So I know Swami Prakashanandji today is our Acharya in Trinidad, and there's several languages in the, there's several people in the Caribbean that speak Avadi still. So I thought that was really cool and relevant to today. So onto the shloka. Laya Sanjeevana Lakhana Jiyaye Shri Raghuvira Harashi Uralaye. So Lord Hanumanji fetched the Sanjeevani to revive Lakshman. So the story is in the Ramayana that Indrajit's arrow struck Lakshmanji and he fainted. And of course, everyone is like, oh my gosh, Lakshmanji has fainted, what should we do? Lord Ram is in despair. And in comes Hanuman, as usual, superhero, to save the day. He is told that the Sanjeevani is an herb that grows in the Himalayas, and that is the only plant that can revive Lakshman. So Lord Hanumanji, all the way from Sri Lanka in the southeast, off the southeast coast of India, flies all the way up to the Himalayas in the northern part of India. And he finds this mountain that he's supposed to get the Sanjeevani from. However, this mountain is also filled with so many different herbs. And you can imagine if you've gone hiking in a mountain, even here in the US, there's so many different plants, different types of trees, shrubs. So he's just confused. And of course, Hanumanji being the awesome person that he is, Nitishanna spoke about his service to Lord Ram. Nishad also spoke about his ability to overcome any obstacle. So he brings the entire mountain back. And this thing, this event in the story is one that always sticks to me. Recently, I started building kind of a relationship, or I guess kind of different perspectives on different deities that we have in Hinduism. As we all know, Saraswati ji is known for her knowledge, her wisdom, but Hanumanji is also known for his knowledge, right? Vidyavan. Lord Shiva is known for several things, but Hanumanji is an incarnation of Lord Shiva. So he's also similar in that way. And today, while I was looking at the shloka, I realized that Lord Hanumanji is similar to Lord Ganesha, because he's also, in a sense, an overcomer of obstacles. No matter what you throw in his way, he's able to overcome it. So I thought that was really awesome. And just elaborating more on this point, I wanted to talk about how today in our daily lives, whether it's with work, in a professional setting, at school, a lot of us are students, even at home, personally with our family or whatever it may be, what's valued in an individual is when someone's able to take an idea and run with it. So say that we're given an assignment, we're given a task. It's not only appreciated when we're able to complete that, but when we're able to give it our own kind of flavor, we're able to go above and beyond what's asked of us. And this is exactly what Hanumanji does in bringing the entire mountain back. He not only puts the hard work in to fly all the way up there, he uses his brain. When he doesn't know what to bring back, he's like, okay, I'll just take back the whole thing. So that's what he does. And this is something that I personally really appreciate in him, is that he doesn't have just the brains, he doesn't have just the hard work, he has both. And I think with that, somebody is undefeatable. So I think if we're able to apply that in our professional lives, we become more efficient. If we're able to apply that in a personal setting, we're able to develop our self-development. We look at spiritual growth. That's able to flourish when we have both of those. So the next part of that Chopai is Sri Raghuvira Harashiyodalai. So that means the Lord Ram himself embraced Hanumanji in gratitude. How many of you have siblings here today? Okay, awesome, me too. One thing I was thinking about in this is if I was in Lord Ram's feet, how that would feel. If you know that something is something's very wrong with your sibling is in danger, and then someone's able to save your sibling, you have infinite gratitude to that person. So I guess putting myself in Lord Ram's shoes and thinking, wow, if I knew my sister was in danger and then someone saved her, I really would have infinite gratitude for that person. That made me kind of really think about how much Lord Ram would be grateful to Lord Hanumanji for that specific incident, and really brought it home for me. And then reading more on this Chopai, I realized that the embrace, right, Lord Ram embraces Hanumanji in gratitude. The embrace actually has a lot of meaning and symbolism. So I personally have never been a big hugger myself. I know it's like normal to hug people on a daily basis. For whatever reason, I just never was into that. And I've been trying to be more open, and it's okay to hug people, Padma. So this symbolism of the hug really hit home as well when I was reading about it. When you think about when two people hug each other, the parts of them that are touching are their hearts. So it's literally a heart-to-heart exchange. And when you think about that with Lord Ram and Hanumanji, that embrace that Lord Ram gives him in gratitude transfers his entire heart to Lord Hanuman. And we see so many depictions of Hanumanji where he's opening his chest, and you see Lord Ram and Lord Sita there. I felt like when I read the shloka, I was like, okay, this is where that transfer happens. This is where Lord Ram and Sita go from Lord Ram to Hanumanji physically. And then one other, I guess, quality here that we find is that, everyone's always, in today's world, everyone's looking for God. Where is God? Where can I find God? One thing that this shloka tells us is that to find the Lord, we should look in the heart of a devotee. And there's no greater devotee than Hanumanji himself. So of course you would find the Lord there. So that's Chopai 11. Chopai 12, Raghupati kinhi bahuta badai tuma mama priya bharata samavai. So this means the Lord Ram praised Hanumanji very highly and said that Hanumanji is as dear to Lord Ram as his own brother Bharat. So when I was thinking about this, the first thing I thought about is praise. We all hear or may hear praise on a day-to-day basis. I think one thing that we see a lot in today's world is flattering. People flatter other people to get what they want. So praise doesn't always mean something to us, but praise really means something to us when someone that we adore, someone that we worship is praising us. And so for Lord Ram to praise Hanumanji, that's something very respectable, something very significant. The next thing I was looking at is Lord Bharat. So we only see Lord Bharat in a little bit parts of the Ramayana. Obviously, Lakshman is there the entire time. Sita ji is there the entire time. There's a few key characters we see throughout the Ramayana, but Lord Bharat is only there in a few key parts. So why does Lord Ram, I guess, have this relationship with Lord Bharat, or how did it come about? It's said that everyone meditates on Lord Ram, but Lord Ram meditates on Lord Bharat. So this actually reminded me of something that happened recently. For the Youth Empowerment Program, this has taken place in 2013 and 2014. There's about 52 graduates so far. So earlier this year, in January, we had what we called a Youth Empowerment Program reunion. And during this reunion, Swamiji's satsangs were about the meeting between Bharat and Lord Ram at Chitrakoot. So for 3 days, he just talked about this specific meeting. And it was also, I guess, very significant of our meeting because a lot of our batch members were seeing each other after a long time. So it really meant a lot to us. And during those satsangs, Swamiji talked about the love that exists between Lord Ram and Lord Bharat. So this is something that I think this chopai really brings out. Again, for me personally, I really didn't understand bhakti, I think, until earlier this year. From being involved with CHYK, being involved in mission, trying to grow spiritually, I feel like I've always been very karma-oriented, so action and service, that's something that I like to do. I've also been more jnana-oriented, like I like to read a lot, attending satsangs, I like to analyze different things about what Swamiji says, but bhakti is something that I feel like I've always lacked and something that I can definitely work on. So this chopai really brought out that love, that bhakti that exists between Lord Ram and Bharat. So one thing I wanted to talk about here is what is love, what is devotion, what is bhakti. And Gurudev, in his text, I Love You letters, outlines exactly what is love. He talks about higher love and lower love, and then 4 aspects that he outlines as to what is devotion. He tells us that true devotion or true love actually has 4 factors: reverence, respect, adoration, and love. So to love somebody, you have to have all 4 of these, and only then is it true love. So reverence is when we put somebody on a higher platform than us, and it's a more pure love. It's not just, oh, I love my pets, I love my fish. It's more like this person is a god to me. They are on a higher platform. And there's also respect. Respect I see as kind of a buffer for human-to-human interactions. I think when we interact with people on a day-to-day basis, obviously we see their good qualities, but we also see their flaws. And I think if we have respect for everyone, that no matter what their flaws are, they're still a human being. And there's still that same Brahman that we say that exists in everybody. That respect is what keeps the buffer from only seeing someone's negatives. Then there's adoration. So this is when we appreciate all of the good qualities of a person. You know, somebody may be very good at public speaking, or someone may be very good at organization or leadership. So when we see these qualities in a person, really appreciating those and really seeing them for those good qualities is adoration. So these 3 plus love, what we say, you know, when we say I love you or I love my sister, all 4 of these put together is true devotion and true love. And this is what Lord Ram had for Bharat. I remember when Swamiji was giving us the satsang, it was very emotional. It was very bhakti fulfilled, I guess. And I was just looking around at all of the, I guess all of us yepsters sitting there, and so many of us had tears flowing down our face. And I think that was the first time that I really felt like I knew what bhakti was. So that was between Lord Ram and Bharat. And Lord Ram said, the way that I feel about Bharat, I also feel about you, Hanumanji. So that's like a huge compliment. And that's given in this shloka. So I guess just to wrap it up, I just wanted to mention, we see obviously in this shloka, Hanumanji has karma, right? He's able to go all the way to the Himalayas and get this Sanjeevani and bring it back. He has bhakti. And obviously we know Vidyavan was covered. He has Jnana. So he has all 3 of those, and he's kind of the super Hanuman superhero that we are here talking about this week. So just wanted to end with that. Thank you. Hari Om.
Hariam, my name is Anuj Khandelwal, and I will be speaking on CHYK 13 and 14. So when I first thought of speaking on this topic, I thought to my childhood, and I kind of related it to Sanjay's super team in the video. And for those of you who don't know what that Sanjay super team video is, it's a Disney kind of short film where a child is seeing his dad do puja, and he wants to watch TV, and his father turns off the TV and asks him to do puja to him. Quickly, the child becomes distracted, but he soon envisions the Bhagwans in front of him to be superheroes. Like Sanjay, as a Balvihar student, I imagine Hanuman to almost be like a superhero. Hearing his stories, his ability to fly, his ability to carry an entire mountain, the ability to change sizes and become as small as a mosquito to help save Sitaji, he was able to capture Suryaji. As a child, I loved hearing these Hanumanji stories. It led me to be the person in my family who decided to always sing Veera Marathi when it was time to sing bhajans. However, as I grew older, these same stories that I loved hearing, I started to realize the inner meaning. Hanumanji, I started to admire and aspire to be Hanumanji and try to embody his wisdom, his courageousness, but most of all, his devotion. For years, my father has mentioned to me that I should learn the Hanuman Chalisa, but not until I read the beauty of the meaning of the Chopais through this explanation did I truly appreciate his advice to me. With that introduction, if everybody would go ahead and sing these two Chopai with me. Sahasa badana tumaro jasa gave, as kahi Shripati kanta lagave, sankadika brahmadhim sa, narada sarada sahita ahisa. The little translation to these verses say, embracing Hanumanji, Lord Ram said, even Sheshnag, the thousand-headed serpent, sings your glory. The great sages like Sanaka, and gods like Brahma, Sheshnag, Narada, and the goddess Sharada too sing your glory. So what we just heard from Padma was that Ram Bhagwan was so overjoyed for what Hanuman had did for him. He's at a loss for words. He's overjoyed. The Lord himself compares Hanumanji, his devotee, to his own brother. Hanumanji has given him a second wind. When Ram Bhagwan became disheartened seeing the condition of Lakshman, he didn't know if he could ever go back to Ayodhya, let alone fight this war. He's given him a second wind, and he could not have returned to Ayodhya without Lakshmanji. Going across the camp, Ram Bhagwan, anytime somebody crosses him or he encounters them, Ram Bhagwan tells them, hey, do you know the great deed that Hanumanji has done? He was telling everybody he could see. Tulsidas Ji is beyond himself to be able to describe what he is seeing. He claims that he just wants to describe what is happening, but the words just don't seem to be flowing. This is such an amazing and beautiful relationship between the Lord and his own devotee. Listening to Swamiji's lecture over the last couple of days, he mentions that when one is emotional or choked up, you can't just find the right words to say. In a similar context, we see that Ram Bhagwan feels the exact same way. But in a similar fashion, we also see that the various Bhagwans and the various Munis also are just overjoyed and cannot find the right words to explain to this. Swami Sarveshananda also gives a pretty funny example. When you first have a bite of food, something delicious, envision the most delicious food you can have, and right at that exact moment, somebody asks you how it tastes, you think, and you can't put the right words to describe that feeling. For me, almost relating that, taking that a step further and relating that to my day-to-day, that's my mom's gulab jamun. I take a huge bite, putting the entire piece into my mouth, and it's almost inexplicable how delicious that truly tastes. Even more beautiful in the description, Sheshanag is a king of all serpents. He is commonly seen with Lord Vishnu. He has 1,000 heads. And in this verse, we hear that he is singing praises with all 1,000 of his heads. And it's actually said that Lakshman is considered to be a reincarnation of Sheshanag, and is often known to sing Sri Hanuman's glories as well. But the beauty there is that even with 1,000 heads, he too cannot truly explain his thoughts and what is happening in front of him, that devotee and that Lord relationship. Brahmaji, other Swamis and Munis all sang the praises of Hanumanji and could not even describe the beauty they were seeing. To take that even further, Lord Saraswati, the goddess of even knowledge, was there and could not describe what she was seeing. You know, relating this to our day-to-day, the Lord comes down to Hanuman. He embraces him. How would you feel if the Lord himself came down to you to thank you? When I'm praised at work, or when we're praised at work, when we're praised at school, I walk with a bit of a swagger. I walk with my chest out. What does Hanumanji do? He bows at the feet of Ram Bhagwan and gives all his credit for his achievements to him alone. So we've heard different things about Hanumanji today, that he's courageous, that he's devoted. But we can safely add yet another characteristic, humility. He has no ego. His work is, his commitment and his devotion is to the Lord. I challenge all of us, especially myself, to embody all of Hanumanji's characteristics, especially his devotion and his humility. Hari Om.
So we have just a few minutes left, as we did on Monday. Let's go ahead and chant the entire Hanuman Chalisa, and then we'll do our closing prayer. Shri Guru Charana Saroj Raja Nija Manu Mukhura Sudari Bharano Raghubara Vimala Jasu Jodayak Phalachari Buddhihina Tanu Janike Sumiro Pavana Kumara Bala Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohi Harahu Kale Sabikara Jai Hanuman Jnana Guna Sagar Jai Kapisha Trihuloka Ujagar Ramaduta Atulita Baladama Anjani Putra Pavana Sutanama Mahavira Vikrama Bajarangi Kumati Nivara Sumati Ke Sangi Kanchana Varana Viraja Suvesa Kanana Kundala Kunjita Kesha Hata Vajra or Dvaja Biraje Kande Munja Janevo Saje Shankara Suvana Kesari Nandana Teja Pratapa Maha Jagavandan Vidyavana Guniyati Chatur Rama Kaj Karibe Ko Atur Prabhu Charitra Sunibe Ko Rasiya Rama Lakhana Sita Manabasiya Sukshma Rupa Darisiya Dikava Vikata Rupa Dari Lanka Jarava Bhima Rupa Dari Asura Samhare Ramachandra Ke Kaja Samvare Laya Sanjivana Lakhana Jiyaye Shri Raghuvira Hara Shiyuralaye
रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई, तुम मम प्रिय भरत ही सम भाई। सहस वदन तुमरो यस गावे, अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे। सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा, नारद सारद सहित अहिसा। यम कुबेर दिगपाल जहाते, कवि कोविद कहि सके कहाते। तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा, राम मिलाय राजपद दीन्हा। तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना, लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना। युग सहस्र योजन पर भानु, लील्योताहि मधुर फल जानु। मुद्रिका मेली मुख माहि, चल दिलांगी गए अचरज नाही। दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हरे तेते। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे। सब सुख लहे तुम्हारी चरणा, तुम रक्षक कान्हो को डरना। आपन तेज सम्हारो आपे, तीनों लोक हांकते कापे। भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे। नाशे रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत वीरा। संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा। और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे। चारों युग परताप तुम्हारा, है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निखंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नवनिधि के दाता, असबर दीन जानकी माता। राम रसायन तुमरे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। तुमरे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे। अंत काल रघुबरपुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई। और देवता चित्तन धरई, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई। संकट कटे मिटे सब पी, जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलवीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई। जो सत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूटहि बंदी महासुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, कीजय नाथ हृदय महडेरा। कीजय नाथ हृदय महडेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरण, मंगल मूर्ति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुर भूप। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। उमापति महादेव की जय, बोलो पै सब संतन की जय. So we'll continue tomorrow, same time, 7:30 here at Saket and also online. But we'll go ahead and close today. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.